So today we're going to be diving into SB 1383, and that is California's mandatory organics recycling law.
And just so you guys know, we tried to make this as simple as possible. There are at the end, we're on our website under our resources page, you can get all the specific details from the state of California, and you can read pages and pages of information. What we're trying to do today in 20 minutes is give you just the gist of it so that it makes it easier for you guys to translate and understand it, and then we'll open it up for questions. So this is the team, which you met, Jillian, myself, and Bryn. And we'll go from here. So I'll let Jillian take over.
So CalRecycle is California's governing agency that oversees everything solid waste, recycling, organics, landfills, and they're in charge of making sure that the state as a whole is on track to decrease their diversion every single year. So the whole point of SB 1383 was to establish some targets and baselines for each state, as well as each county and city within the state of California. And the initial goal was to decrease the disposal of organics by 50% as a whole. And looking forward, by 2025, the state's goal is to be at that 75% reduction. So pretty much what they're doing right now in Northern California, they've been doing it for quite a few years, is instead of just having the two waste streams of trash and recycling, they do have a third waste stream of commingled organics. So that can be your landscape waste as well as pre and post-consumer food scraps. So that's going to help, decrease the trash level, decrease the recycling level. Most likely, organics would be your largest waste stream, makes up about 50% of the waste stream. So they really want to try to get those out of the landfill. The methane gas with food scraps, it cannot break down, causes a major issue. So that was the big push for that one. So CalRecycle's overseeing that. They meet with every single jurisdiction each year to make sure that they are also on track to meet these goals. With that, each individual jurisdiction is now responsible for making sure that their businesses and multifamily properties are also in compliance and are on track to help achieve that goal. Multifamily is one of the largest contributors to the waste stream in Southern California and California as a whole. So that's why they're really targeting multifamily and then heavy commercial generators.
And just so you guys know, this bill was passed in 2014, and really what 2020 is the first checkpoint. So they gave 6 years for the state to kind of make adjustments to hit that 50% reduction level. And so that's kind of why, if you have received any notices or why the waste haulers are starting to make changes now, is because this is kind of the first moment where they've asked to kind of have a checkpoint. And the next one obviously being in 2025, where they're requesting a 75% reduction.
And just so you know, the state's CalRecycle agency, they will be issuing fines to the different jurisdictions if they do not have ordinance or mandates to help achieve this goal. So some of you may have already received these notification letters. They are not violations yet, just so you know and you're aware of that. They're more of a friendly reminder, hey, this is what is needed to be done. This is how you do comply, and please do so. So the thresholds have changed. It's a tiered structure, and you guys can see this on CalRecycle's website as well. But originally it was the threshold for people who needed to have organics diverted was 4 multifamily units or more, as well as 2 cubic yards of solid waste service or more per week. So they did go ahead and change what the definition of solid waste is. It does include your recycling as well. So if you have a 3-yard trash dumpster, you are automatically hitting that threshold. You need to be diverting some type of organics. You add in the recycling and that number goes up. So pretty much anyone who has a commercial dumpster through a waste hauler is going to be affected by this mandate. So you're probably wondering, how do you comply? Luckily, you do have a couple years to prepare, but these jurisdictions are starting to send notifications out now. So we want you guys to all know what you need to do, how to comply, and how to stay in compliance as the law phases in.
And I think to just add on to that, I mean, ultimately, the only way to really comply at the time level in which they ask is you're going to have to add this service through your waste hauler. And so, for property managers speaking to your board, there is no way that you're going to have to, increase the amount of waste and recycling you're doing, and costs are going to go up. And that's something that does need to be started to talk about level, but not necessarily today. And that's what we're here to tell you is that, yes, this is going to be a cost increase that all of us in California are going to have to take on, but you don't have to panic and you don't.
Michelle?
So.
Oh, do remember at large.
Um, One thing we would suggest as you move forward is, calling the waste hauler directly and saying, hey, I need organics waste. They're going to maybe not subscribe you the amount that you need. They might try to give you guys to have too much. Definitely consult an outside company to figure out how many units you guys have, how much waste and recycling you're getting rid of, and then really what is the need that your property is going to need to be in compliant, but you don't want any more than that. You don't want to spend money when you definitely don't have to.
And as we discussed with SB 1383, it is kind of two-pronged. So it is the landscaping waste as well as the food scraps. So a great way to comply right now, two options is either you can subscribe to a green waste route through your current hauler. Additionally, if any of you have a landscaping contract for your property, I would highly encourage you to go through, review that contract, and see if there is a line item that states they must self-haul all of the green waste, landscape waste off-site. That right there could be a huge savings as well. So just so you know, you guys do not need to panic. You have time. Like I said, 2025 is when most jurisdictions will start the fining and violation process. So it starts with the notice of violation. After that, you do have 90 days to comply. After that, you can actually request for an extension for an additional 90 days. After that has been approved, depending on your circumstance, if it's a more rural community or maybe there isn't a large amount of organics at that property, you can receive up to an additional 24 months to comply under a corrective action plan. So you guys definitely do have time, but definitely something that you want to start thinking about because it is coming.
Yeah, and even in the bill, if you read too, it talks about global pandemics, which we're obviously in one, that would be reasons for additional time given to become in compliance. And so, although in January 2022 is when essentially that process is supposed to start, and it is mandated for your properties to be compliant, I do believe that extensions are not going to be difficult to come by. For either pushing 90 days or, as you can see in the corrective action plan, which is almost 24 months. And so really what it does is it leads you up starting in next year of January 2022. And really, I think if you were smart about it and had the ways to work around it, you would have to be in compliance by 2025.
That's correct.
Obviously, how we can help. This is something that we're specialties in, and we're working with lots of our current property managers on programs and to get themselves prepared for that. If we don't already service some of your properties, we can take a look at them, and basically we can take this off your plate. This is something that we have the professionals that have been doing this. We understand what's needed. We understand how to comply. We understand what happens if we get a notice of violation. And we can obviously manage that for you. Also, and I think the main thing is we're going to make sure you get the right service so that you're not necessarily paying too much for what the waste haulers are going to suggest. And then obviously, ultimately, just educating your residents, educating you guys. We post signs, regular newsletters, email correspondence, because one thing as property managers is, we can roll out an organics bin, but if the residents aren't using it correctly, and it's not really going to get to the meaning of what this reason was for. So that's where we're here to help as well. So that is kind of the short and sweet. I mean, what does this cost? Obviously, if we manage your guys' waste and recycling at your current properties, there's not a cost. We obviously try to reduce the cost of your current waste and recycling bill by also adding the organics and getting in compliance. We do that because we have great relationships with the waste haulers, and essentially our group pricing is much less than if you individually just go and set up service. So 90% of the time we are not raising the cost of what you're currently paying for waste and recycling, and we can add in those organics and obviously all the support as well. And like we said in the beginning, if you want to dig into this a little bit deeper, you can go to globaldisposal.com and go onto the resources page. And we have all of the links to the California State website where it kind of goes over in depth everything that we covered today. But I think the most important thing for you guys to know is that there's no need to panic. This is something that is going to happen, so you cannot push it off forever. But you and the board and whoever you're working with for your individual's properties can come up with a plan so that it's done correctly, it's done right, and ultimately fulfilling what the need is of that State Bill 1383. Does anybody have any questions? If you want to type them in the chat, or if you just want to turn your mic on, does anybody have any questions for us, clarifications or anything like that that we could help you guys with? You guys can also respond to the email that we've sent out. If you do have some questions later, we'd be more than happy to help you guys answer any of those questions and go from there. We just want to thank you guys for spending some time with us this afternoon.
There are 2 questions.
Go ahead.
I think they're on your chat.
Oh, okay. Let me look. Hold on. Oh, got it. Oh, perfect. There we go. Receive copies of the presentation. Yes.
So if you do go to the Global Disposal website, under the resources section, you'll actually see the PowerPoint has been posted there as well, with some other resources as well, but the whole PowerPoint should be uploaded there.
And it looks like, Cheryl, you also have a question. I can answer that for you. So the first one, how will the edible items be handled? Separate bins, smell pickup every day? Does this apply to PUDs, single family homes? So let's jump into that. So edible items, they will be handled the same as all organics. So I don't want you to be too worried about the smell. You have to think people are currently throwing away all of their food waste and food scraps in their regular trash bin. So it's going to be the same thing. Most properties will either have a separate cart or dumpster for their community for the food waste scraps. The only difference is they cannot be packed. So people will be asked to empty those food scraps directly into the organics bin. But they have found that when the lids are closed, it's pretty much the same as a regular trash dumpster. Doesn't smell great, but it doesn't have any additional smells. For the separate bins, so the jurisdictions, CalRecycle has laid out multiple options of bin configurations. In Southern California, what we're seeing mostly is a 3-stream system. So whether it's carts or dumpsters, it's going to be 3 separate bins. You'll have your recycle dumpster or cart, you'll have your trash dumpster or cart, and then you'll have your commingled organics dumpster or cart. And with those, most service routes are going to be commingling the landscape waste and the food scraps into one. What's happening with the food scraps, once they are hauled off site, they are taken to what's called an anaerobic digestion facility. To put it in simple terms, it's pretty much like a large metal stomach where all of the food scraps can go, and over a 24-hour process, it churns over and over again. It extracts all of that methane gas that gets piped through, and it gets upgraded to a fuel that the trash trucks, recycled trucks, and organics trucks can actually run on. So it is a fuel to energy model, which is great. We love to see things not going in the landfill and being upcycled into either, a fuel or renewable energy. So that's what that's going to. There is also a second sludge-like byproduct that comes out of the anaerobic digestion facility that ends up being turned into soil amendment. So this is going to apply to multifamily homes, and you will also see it in single family homes. The city of Oceanside for Southern California actually has rolled out their single family home organics cart. I believe theirs is yellow, and it is going to be commingled organics, so landscape and pre and post consumer food scraps. It looks like Diane had a follow-up question about all food scraps, bones. So yes, pretty much if at any point the item was alive, whether it was a plant-based product or a meat-based product, it can go through these anaerobic digestion facilities. Eggshells are accepted, bones are typically accepted. I know in Southern California, our facilities will be handling all of that.
And Diana, you also had another question of what areas do we service, and we work all the way up and down California and actually in some other states as well. So obviously most of our business we're based here in Point Loma in San Diego, but most of our business is in San Diego. but we go all the way up to San Francisco and other states as well. So there is not an area that we don't service or work with. So any property that you have, big or small, we can work with.
As well for the stream, I wanted to mention a lot of these facilities are also going to be taking what they call food, soil, and paper waste. So your paper napkins, paper towels, any paper plates that may have had a food item on it and you can't get it clean, you wouldn't want to put it in the recycling. That can go in the organic bin as well, since it is a paper organic product. Compostable cutlery will most likely be accepted in most of these streams. And even something as large as like a greasy pizza box, because that can't currently go in the recycling, it would be accepted for the organics recycling.
Interesting.
Well, if there's any more questions, we can kind of hang on for a few minutes. We would just want to thank you guys again for jumping on this. I will say that next week, next month, we're going to be talking about overages and contamination fees and how you guys as property managers can help limit those as much as possible, what role we can play in helping reduce those costs. As you guys know, your bill is probably fluctuating on a pretty regular basis, and our team does a great job of really not necessarily making the haulers to prove that there were those overages and contaminations. We fight those fees for you guys. And our team is kind of specialty at that. So that'll be next month. We did have another question. Currently receiving complaints that condo residents are co-mingling recycling. Have you had HOAs to comply? We have sent letters. Yeah, so I think that's what we're talking about with the contamination fees, and they're putting in things into the recycling bin that shouldn't. That's all about education as much as possible. It is really, really difficult. Sometimes your guys' levels of service aren't correct. So if you're not getting your trash dumped regularly and the trash bin is full and then all that's left over is the recycling, then you do get your residents to kind of just throw things in the recycling. And then that can be anywhere from a $25 to $50 charge as a contamination fee in your recycling. So one of the things that we'll do is we will audit your properties on a regular basis during a month of trash to see what levels of service you have, how much, maybe you need to add some more, maybe you need to add a day of recycling. What most people don't know is that recycling is the cheaper of the two. And so if you have some issues in your recycling bin, to bump that up service levels is a very minimal cost. And then the last scenario, if your residents just really are not complying, is to put locks on the bins and find a way to secure those bins. Because sometimes it's not your residents, it's other people from the community that are coming in and using your dumpsters. And obviously that bill is going to you. And there's a lot of ways in which we can do our best. But I think education is the best part. Typically when residents understand what they're doing at every time they put something in the recycling bin that they shouldn't, that's costing their HOA and their community money, that's the best way to try to do it and try to slow the cost of that down. Are you going to be fined? So the question of, are you going to be fined? Is that right? How long will it be fined involved? Yeah, fine. I think we're talking about in 2025, yes. If your property was not under compliance, that is, you could be fined at that time. I do think not now, and that would probably take some time to get there. But I think by 2025, if you have a large enough property and you have no good reason why you don't have organics and you're not diverting that, then yes, you could be fined at that point. Well, thank you guys so much. We will be sending out some information about next month's Lunch and Learn. Once again, it'll be about contamination fees and overage charges, and what you guys can do as property managers to make those stop, or at least reduce them as much as possible. So our information, you guys have our email address that we sent out. We'd love to hear questions for you. If you have any properties that you'd love us to look at, where you're having some issues with waste and recycling, we'd love to do that as well. We give free audits. All we ask is that we get an opportunity to take a look at what you guys service you currently have. Obviously, our goal is to reduce costs at all costs possible. And then obviously just be a resource for you guys. We want to take over all of the customer service and all the issues that you you guys have when it comes to this, and be a company that you guys can rely on, and especially locally. We really pride ourselves on being a San Diego-based company and trying to serve San Diego well. So thank you guys so much for your time. We'll hang back for a little bit if you have questions, but you guys have a great rest of your day.